It's John Reed. It's John Reed in New York City, and I've got Rebecca Wettemann. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
It's such a nice surprise to see you here because this was event roulette. I didn't know who was going to show up. And I've been wanting to talk with you. We are at Oracle AI World, and we're going to say a few things about that. It's a regional AI event that is building off of some of their big announcements, and I'm sure audience has seen some of those. We'll get back to Oracle a little bit towards the end of this, but I really have been wanting to talk to you about your research, so I'm really glad you're here because you published on Diginomica an article about this. You called it "In Pursuit of the Customer Holy Grail: Why Organizations Must Finally Tackle the Cost of Disconnected CX." And I just thought this research was really provocative and interesting. And I would just like to go back in time a little bit to prior to when you released this. What was on your mind? What inspired you to kind of dig into this topic?
Thanks. And thanks for having me, John. You know, we've been talking about a customer 360 for as long as you and I have been in this business, right?
Yep.
And it seems to me like as much as we talk about it, we have progressively moved further and further away from it. As we've added channels, as we've added means of interaction, as we've added different sources of customer data.
To be fair to brands, that wasn't all their fault either, right? Because the channels keep expanding, right? And now you have these, AI interaction channels. So like brands are kind of on their heels as well because they stunk at this to begin with.
Right.
And then things kept getting harder.
Right. And the platform, certainly in the on-prem world, there wasn't the flexibility to sort of develop and build and add in another platform, right? Integration has notoriously been difficult and expensive. The challenge is now with AI, I have to be able to bring all this data together, right? Because if I have conflicting, not current or plain incorrect data, I can't automate a workflow with AI because it's going to either hallucinate, confabulate, or just stop altogether.
Yep.
Right. So if I'm really going to take advantage of AI, I've got to have the data in one place and I've got to have a consistent way to label it, harmonize it, understand it, and use it to guide those customer interactions.
Therefore, the report. But the thing that I think was interesting about this is whenever you go into research like this, you don't necessarily know exactly what to expect, right? I mean, we know that like you said, the landscape is fragmented, too many tools, so much in play. We know that the stakes are higher too, right? Because customer expectations have risen as well, right? Like I want, when I'm in contact with you on any channel, I don't want you just to know about my most recent transaction. I want you to have my service history, all of that, right? So you knew that you were going to surface some troubling data, right? But were there any like surprises or anything that really jumped out at you from all of this?
I think the idea that almost 90% of customers thought that, or our service leaders thought that the C360, that 360 view of the customer was unattainable is a pretty damning note, right? But I think for contact center leaders and more broadly, sort of service managers, they're facing incredible pressure right now to deliver with AI, right? Everybody says you've got to be able to automate things with AI. They recognize that there's a big data hurdle that they have to go over before they can get there. And I think for a lot of them, it's a big sort of moment to say, how do I actually do this and execute on it when I have multiple different workflows and data sources for different channels?
So some of the problem statements you laid out in this article really resonate. Talk about how the average organization is juggling 20 different integrations in a desperate attempt to stitch together customer data, yet only 58% of that data is actually accessible in a single system. You go on to say that gap isn't just inconvenience, it's a root cause of rising costs, stalled AI initiatives, and underperforming customer experiences. Yikes. But then you tweak this in an important way, which you say on paper, most of these contact centers do look modern. They've adopted CRM platforms, layered in the buzzy contact centers as a service, CCaaS, that everyone gets geeked up about. They've added new digital channels and started experimenting. So I think that's what's so interesting about this is that we have such a desire to have a modern experience, and yet we may not want to confront what it's going to take to get us there.
And it's not necessarily a technology problem,
Mm.
right? It's as much as a people and a political problem.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, the person who's managing the contact center is not the same person who's managing the website. It's not the same team that's dealing with email interactions. So just conceptually and politically, I've got these silos, let alone the technology that doesn't necessarily talk to each other, even if it's technically integrated.
Yeah, and that was the next thing you say in the piece is under the hood, customers are running fragmented architectures, never designed to work together, marketing bought one system, sales another, service a third. I would add, like, you're lucky if marketing just bought one system. Marketing probably has 75 systems.
Yeah, and never mind that I've got data in finance and in supply chain about product, and I've got
Right.
materials inventory and all those sorts of things that are going to need to be part of that customer experience to answer customers' questions that are well outside the realm of CCaaS and CRM.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it feels like companies may end up, if they don't read your research, they're going to learn a little bit of this the hard way. I thought a really telling example was the whole brouhaha with Walmart dropping OpenAI for commerce. And essentially the reason for the drop was that the bot simply didn't have the accurate information on inventory. And when you're online and you're trying to order stuff, that's kind of important, right?
Kind of a problem, yeah.
And so Walmart hasn't like given up on this. They're going to use their own bot, I think, for some of this stuff going forward. I think Sparky's the name. I can't remember. But the point being, like, if Walmart executives, as sophisticated as they are, can get tripped up into thinking that we can kind of roll this next generation agent out and not confront these data issues, like, I think this is going to happen to a lot of companies if they can't wake up on this issue.
I think anybody who's tried to build an agent today knows how important the data is and knows how important the process is. And anybody that tells you that building an agent is easy or determining what data that agent needs to function effectively is a cakewalk is lying to you. There's a lot to it.
So we think about like some of the potential benefits of AI, and I think one of the benefits is forcing these conversations, right? You talked about it from a people perspective, right? Like in the past, maybe you could get away with your fiefdoms or whatever, but now if you're being called in front of your leadership team to justify your AI results and you don't have good working collaboration on the human level between sales, marketing, and service, how are you going to have effective AI?
Yeah, and how am I going to orchestrate when a conversation passes from channel to channel? And how do I think about prioritizing my investments in AI if I don't understand across my different channels what the cost is to service a customer today, to interact with a customer today, and what's the potential benefit that I'm leaving on the table by not being able to optimize that interaction?
And you talk about a lot of the costs of these fragmentations being mostly hidden, and people don't have unlimited budget. So if they're spending on this, are they going to be able to then allocate for the forward-thinking stuff they need? And you talk about how organizations are spending nearly $1,000 per user annually on integration between components like CRM and CCaaS. Over a quarter of that just going to integration technologies. And then the real drain isn't the software, it's the people. The average organization allocates 0.07, 0.07 support full-time equivalents per service rep. And those teams are drowning in data work. So now you have these stats around 41% of their time going to data quality, synchronizing, and governance. That doesn't sound to me like an AI-ready profile.
I'll tell you, it's a lot of manual work today. It's a lot of things that could be automated, that could be done intelligently, that could be managed by exception with AI. There's an awful lot that I can do with technology and tools today to clean up the data mess. It's a question of where do I start and how do I do it? And that's often more of a political question than a budget one.
Yeah, I was really interested to explore that with you a little bit, like, because I'm seeing sort of mixed results but the obvious question would be, can't we use some of these tools to make these data quality problems easier and make these, sort of integration modernization projects more effective. Like, are you seeing some advances there? Because I'm seeing, like, I would say modest advances at best in terms of, I mean, obviously using AI to clean for AI is kind of a weird circular thing anyway, but do you think that if organizations bear down on this, there's some new tools that can help them? Or
I think folks are realizing that the technology and capabilities are there. I think the biggest challenge, if I talk about the traditional kind of CCaaS manager, right? That buyer, I would argue that a lot of them move to CCaaS without making the mental move to cloud. So they're still thinking about their systems as sort of stochastic, one-off, set it and forget it kind of systems. So again, it's a change in mindset to think about how I can use the tools to be on a kind of continuous evolution process. Because the other thing to remember too with AI is it's not stopping, right? It's not like you deploy it and forget about it. You're going to have to manage it and tune it on an ongoing basis too, whatever you're using.
which kind of brings you to the what are we going to do about it part of your findings, which of course is really important because we don't want to just send people off into the corporate bell jar to get, you know,
Corporate bell jar, I love
to
that.
get sort of like super insular, depressed about their data problems. You said the next phase of AI in customer service won't be defined by better models or flashier demos. It will be defined by who gets their data house in order and who doesn't. I totally agree with that. But you talk about how we're starting to see signs of a shift that leading organizations that I would agree with you, we can all learn from those. They're moving away from what you call brittle integration heavy architectures towards platform consolidation, unified data models, shared data layers, prioritizing real-time access. So what do you think is the message to customers out there in terms of what do you do about this reality? Where would you suggest that they put their energies?
I think it's an evolutionary process. This is not going to be a one and done. And we're certainly going to see different channels evolve as we have over time. So this is always going to be a moving target. I think focusing on some quick wins where they could show value in areas like getting the knowledge base consolidated across channels is a great place to start, where you can see impact across multiple channels at the same time. I think also they need to be looking at what are the kind of technologies and capabilities that they can be deploying today to get that data house in order on an ongoing basis. So some of the componentized knowledge bases, the ability to have more dynamic data structures that any business user can look at and understand rather than having to pull in a business analyst, for example, to do. There's a lot more democratization of data management that I can deliver for users and for administrators.
I think the other really interesting thing that I'm going to be watching around all of this, not just in CX, but in a lot of areas, I think customers are going to need to step back from we have 30 or 40 different best of breed SaaS apps in this one area to more putting their trust in a handful of platforms that might provide software, but they might also build or have partners build, but it'll be part of this same data structure and same data platform because that's how you get your context from AI right. And without that right context, you don't get good AI. And so I think that's a change. And I would also add that I think that's going to be a similar issue for customers if they get too carried away with agentic AI startups into the mix as well, because I consider that perpetuating the same problem in the long run. Because even if you get a quick hit with a good agentic app somewhere that a best of breed built for you, if it goes counter to the data platform structures of your primary vendors, I think ultimately you have more of this chaos. And so in my opinion, it's going to lead to some platform standardization. But
yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see consolidation. I think we're going to see some standardization. You're already seeing, the CCaaS folks partner with the CRM folks to build more sturdy, shall we say, integrations between CRM and CCaaS. We had Salesforce announced their play at the contact center, which is, certainly an interesting area to watch as things evolve. There are an awful lot of, to your point, kind of point solution vendors out there that I don't see necessarily being sustainable in the long term. I think what is really interesting for the folks who get the orchestration piece right from an AI platform perspective, they're going to be making a lot of calls on no pun intended, which agents get called and which ones don't. So that's a really, really interesting space to watch.
Cool. Well, as you and I talk, we're still pretty early in this infamous spring event season. So there's going to be, I think, a whole lot of fascinating CX events coming up where you'll be able to get to the bottom of some of this with customers and executives. For your own research priorities, where would you like to take this next?
Really looking more at how AI is being used effectively today, because I think that tells you where the data bodies are buried.
Absolutely. All right. Well, looking forward to seeing how you document that.